guess what? I'm doing a what-if video. Now, I know this is super weird because I've totally never done one of these before, and like, I definitely don't have a series that I've left unupdated for months or anything. So, we're gonna try this for the first time. Xenoblade 2 has a lot of characters people know and love, but one of the ones that gets pretty overlooked is Malos' blade, Sever. So, for this what-if, we're gonna replace Sever with a much better character. That, of course, being Finch, the objectively best blade in the entire game, both story and gameplay-wise. So this is going to spoil the entirety of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but let's be real, you don't care about that, all you care about is Finch. So let's start talking about how this one small change will change the entire story of the game. I say this, of course, and actually Chapter 1 is pretty much exactly the same, because, believe it or not, Sever doesn't really do much in Chapter 1. There are only 4 differences. The first is when Rex runs into Torna the first time, he's a bit less intimidated because, originally, it's Jin with his mask on, it's Malos, it's Sever, and then it's Nia giving him a bit of a look, and Dromark being a type of blade he's never seen. But in this scenario, the scales are tipped a bit more on the cute side instead of the intimidating one, because not only is Nia there, but also the Xenomorph dude is replaced with a cute burb girl. So that happens, but it doesn't really change anything. Finch is also there, present for Rex's conversation with Nia on the ship on the way to the ancient ship. That doesn't really change anything, they still talk about the same stuff, but she's there goofing off and it's cute. Thirdly, that little fight with Malos on the deck of the ancient ship has a bit of an extra gag at the beginning because Finch, being Finch, forgets which side she's on and accidentally stands next to Rex and Pyra instead of on the side of Malos. Also, that fight is slightly easier for Rex to win because Finch is, in all reality, a worse blade gameplay-wise than Sever, so she'd be a little easier to defeat, but it doesn't actually change anything and the rest of the chapter goes on as normal. Business as usual again extends into Chapter 2, because that chapter doesn't involve Torna at all. All you see is them in cutscenes in the background a little bit, and they have no effect on the story, so everything happens the same, because no changes to things have happened so far, really. It's just a bunch of dialogue stuff for the most part. Chapter 3 is a bit different, though. All the Akos stuff is the same, because he's alone with Abrona. There's no Malos, so there would be no Finch. But any cutscene with Sever in it will also just have Finch goofing off in the background instead of just standing there menacingly like Sever. The battle at Elethra Ruins is also not very different, because most of the challenge, story-wise, not gameplay-wise, is coming from Akos and Abrona, not Malos and Sever. They're just doing the heavy hitting, while Akos nullifies everyone's ether, so he's the problem one, which means that Finch being slightly worse than Sever doesn't really affect how difficult the party finds those fights, so Vandam does still sacrifice himself. Finch is a lot more talkative than Sever though, so when Rock returns to his core crystal, she manages to very quickly convince Malos to hold on to it, because, you know, they're both birds, they're both wind elements, there's some camaraderie there even though they're on opposite sides. Mythra comes out as usual too, but she's even more annoyed than Rex than she was in the main game, because he lost to a bird. How do you even do that? She starts off thinking that Finch is a real pushover and Rex is an idiot for losing to her ever, but eventually she realizes that she is somewhat of a force to be reckoned with, because when that sacred arrow happens, Abrona gets smoked as usual, Malos takes the big hit and is out of commission and has to retreat, but Finch is just absentmindedly wandering off in the middle of the battle and happens to not be in the range of the sacred arrow that killed 2 blades, including Sever in the main game, so she actually survives and retreats with Akos and Malos. Chapter 4 is very, very slightly different, and by that I mean it's objectively improved. Malos has Rock's core crystal, so Rock's core crystal is never stolen, so that stupid detour to Gormott that's just filler never happens. Torna only factors in at the end of Chapter 4, but Malos isn't there. You'd think that there would be a slight attitude change between Mick and Petroka there, but keep in mind, Abrona was still destroyed by the Sacred Arrow, so they know Mythra's capable of nuking blades, they know she'll do it, and they have the same attitude going on. I don't even know if those two would respect Finch as much, because they weren't there for her skillfully eluding Mythra's attack, So all of that does go on as usual, and the same has to be said for Chapter 5 as well, because there's only Jin. Jin is the only Torna member who shows up, and most of the chapter is politics and stuff related to Rex. So, again, Finch doesn't have any opportunity to change, but don't worry, in the last 5 chapters, she'll have plenty of opportunities to change things, and oh boy, she will. Starting with Chapter 6, which, yeah, is going to be the same for the most part, because Torna isn't there for the most part, but very quickly diverges once you reach the fight for the Omega Fetter. If you remember, in the original game, Malos just kind of chilled on the sidelines because his blade was gone, and he didn't want to awaken another one and get it caught in the crossfire of all of this. Of course, his blade's still around, and while he would definitely be annoyed with and abrasive towards Finch at the beginning, by now he's grown somewhat fond of her, because who doesn't grow fond of Finch after staring at her for a while? And he's actually awoken Rock, not only as another person to fight with, but also as just a kind of companion for Finch. He joins the fight alongside Akos, Patroka, and Mick, actually swapping between an attack blade and a tank blade as necessary to support his other party members. This causes the fight to be a lot harder than it was in the main game, like story-wise, not just gameplay-wise. I'm mostly thinking story, and story-wise, they got rid of those 3 pretty quickly, but a 4th combatant with 2 blades, even if none of them are Flesh Eater tier in power, is actually a lot of stuff. Additionally, Rex can't bring himself to hurt Rock, because he still blames himself for Vendham's death. Vendham's death is somewhat his fault, so you can see the wheels turning. Mithra has obviously softened towards him a bit, so she's trying to stop him from doing stuff, but he can't bring himself to strike at Rock, and eventually will decide to take on Akos, Patroka, and Mick alone while the rest of the party handles Malos. Everything else does occur pretty similarly. Rex on his own is still able to much more difficultly defeat the 2 Flesh Eaters and Mick, but it is Malos who defeats the rest of the party. Jin only steps in when the other 3 are down, and Rex is refusing to fight against Malos while he's using Rock, so he's just dodging. Mithra can dodge Rock and Finch's attacks really easily, so Jin steps up, does his cool thing just to actually hit Rex since Malos can't. Pyra gets taken as usual. Rock is somewhat stoic for it, but Finch seems torn. I could definitely see a Malos-influenced Rock be very stoic towards acts of brutality, violence, and crimes committed by Malos, because that's sort of how he is with Vandam. Obviously, he's a bit more open, because him and Vandam are a very perfect match, but Finch is Finch. I don't think she'd like to see that stuff, but Malos looks at her and seems to think that she's going to have to harden or possibly hard-boil herself in preparation for the battles ahead. I know I'm still sounding like a broken record, but believe it or not, the beginning of Chapter 7 is still going to be mostly the same as the main game, again because there's no Torna involved. The one big difference, though, is in Rex's attitude. He looked up to Vandam and Rock his blade. Malos killed Vandam and reawakened Rock for himself. Rex cannot forgive that. He doesn't want to stop Malos, he wants to kill Malos in order to free Rock from his influence, which is very different than he is in the main story. It doesn't really make him any less overtly heroic, because I want to kill the bad guy isn't really considered a morally gray thing, but as a character he's definitely a bit grayer because his reason for wanting to kill Malos is a bit more of a selfish one than, oh, the world will never be safe as long as Malos lives. So, beyond that, the trip to Elpis happens, the third sword happens, I love you and all you guys happens, and our next divergent point happens, when the party makes it to the Cliffs of Moritha and reaches the Gotrock Oracle Ruins. Because, by the time they get there, Malos hasn't already finished draining Pyra's data, because Finch doesn't want her to get permanently hurt or whatever, and is starting to argue with Malos and Rock. So Malos is trying to placate her in some way, because he doesn't want to make her mad or get her upset, but also still get the data. So he's not done with that process, and instead of fighting Malos with his Monado in the ruins, it's actually Jin and Rock there to try and buy some time for him to finish doing his thing. Obviously, this fight is still as hopeless as the later Jin and Malos fight was, because even Malos on his own was defeatable by the party. So, a bunch of weird things happen, and Rex's voice eventually reaches Pyra's body out of sight, so Numa does awaken and they are able to push Jin back. Malos has only regained some of his Aegis powers, so he still has to fight alongside his blades. And while him and Jin were relatively equal in that big fight when you first get Numa, this time he is the weak link and he actually goes down hard. Jin doesn't take as much damage because they realize they can hurt Malos more, so they go for him, and he actually gets mortally wounded, even though he's still sort of relying on his two blades. Everyone can tell that he is about to pass away, and he goes into a big speech about giving his core to pass on his legacy. Jin looks like he's ready to accept, as any reasonable Jin would expect, but instead, as he dies, the power goes into Finch instead. He decided to choose his new bird child over his best friend that he made and decided to overthrow the world together and for. Rock returns to his core crystal. Jin is very confused and annoyed, and Finch now has not only Malos' power, but also some of his influence. Gone is the empathy, and while her forgetfulness is still there, as well as her, I guess, kind of dumbness, she is now a genuinely evil character, and summons Ophion to fight the party just like Malos did before. Jin is very annoyed and feels extremely betrayed by Malos' actions, pretty justifiably so, and actually joins to fight alongside the party to fend off Ophion. They are successful, but Rex and Numa don't really know their own power, so they still destroy most of the rock and send everyone tumbling down to Moritha, but this time Ophion is able to escape. They don't call Siren down because they feel like Jin is enough support without needing the artifice, so Ophion, it's kind of weird. It's not explicitly mentioned whether or not it's destroyed canon-wise. I think it is, but obviously it's there as a super boss to be an optional thing, but I'm pretty sure story-wise it is destroyed because it doesn't show up again in the plot and you'd think it would. But this time it does escape with Finch on its back, which brings us into Chapter 8. This is a bit of a weird thing because I had to put in Rock showing back up again because Rex has to awaken Rock once he has the crystal. He might want to pass on Venom's legacy for some reason by not awakening him, but you could just do it this way. Rex and Mithra fall down together, they talk, then they run into Jin and team up. So how about Rex falls down alone and Mithra ends up with Jin? He has to awaken Rock to fight. That happens. He runs into the other two. Jin is less hurt than before, so he could still access his true form easily and isn't putting as much strain on himself. So he and Mithra reconcile before Rex gets there. They have the coffee and milk conversation there. Jin talks a little bit about how he is deteriorating. Numa is able to sort of alleviate that. And eventually everyone does end up joining forces. The party gets back together. Rex finds out about his Master Driver ability. Jin decides to fight as his own person, basically him driving himself as a flesh eater, so he won't awaken blades, but he won't also become the blade of someone else. That job is reserved for Laura, and it seems like him and Mithra have talked about possibly being able to do something about that this time since they're actually on the same side. The Marsanas normally goes and picks up Jin at the end of the chapter, and this still happens. They're looking to just grab Jin and head up the tree, but this time they actually end up joining forces with the party because the other three would very much rather follow Jin, who doesn't want to do what Finch does, than the bird that Malos for some reason started doting on instead of, his actual friends. So they do end up flying up a bit faster than the climb was in the main story. They make it to the area where Jin and Malos got off the main game and where you start fighting the Indoline, and that is when they are stopped by Amalthus, bringing in the rest of the Titans. As we get into Chapter 9, it's important to remember that the members of Torna and the members of the game party will be interacting in some way. They'll be having conversations and stuff as the ship is getting from the land of Moritha to partway up the world tree. So they're going to see Laura's body, they're going to talk about it. Mick is going to mention that he can transform the ship into a mech, but Numa and Jin are on the same side, and Mithra, who remembers Laura from 500 years ago, definitely wants to see her recovered and Jin brought back to normal, so they don't want to sacrifice the Marsanas while her body is still in it. Jin does want to remain a flesh eater so he can use his full power to go fight off Finch and the Indoline. So him, Rex, and Numa work together to fight Indal and stop Amalthus' control over the other Titans. They succeed, basically doing the exact same thing Rex and Numa do alone in the main game, but it's faster because they have another person there to help. When they're about to finish off Indal, or just destroy the little pillar things that can help Amalthus control the Titans or whatever it is, Ophion comes back down from the top of the tree, or from out of sight above on the tree, with no rider, and one-shots it, sinking the Titan on its own. Everyone's angry at the kill stealing. Everyone's also somewhat terrified because Finch is nowhere to be seen. Ophion is just wreaking havoc over everything. The artificial blades did transfer control to Finch, so Jin isn't able to use those, and Torna is basically just left with the Marsanas. So they have to fly, hide it behind a branch or something, stash it somewhere where Finch and Ophion won't find it and accidentally destroy Laura. So they start climbing the tree. Amalthus goes in desperation mode instead of try to kill everyone, so he's the first one to the architect mode. He's found and fought in the same room. He's slightly weaker than he is in the game because he doesn't eat Akos and Patroka's cores before the fight, but either way, a 9-person party, including Akos and Patroka, and Mick, and a full-power Jin, and Numa will kill him easily and progress onwards towards Elysium. And so we reach Chapter 10, the grand finale when Elysium is reached for real, and the changes start very soon. Everyone is obviously shocked and awed at the deserted place they see, but all of this is cut short, because on their way walking over to the temple, Ophion comes crashing through the roof of the habitat, and a very tense fight happens because they have to fend it off before all the air escapes. They eventually are able to force it back out through the hole, and a combination of Numa doing Numa stuff and Jin just freezing things does close it, so everyone is still able to breathe. Space habitats are big, Elysium is big, science-wise, as long as the hole isn't like the size of the entire enormous habitat, they will be fine for a while, even with the air escaping, so they will be okay. This is reasonable for me to say that that's possible. So, yeah. 9 chapters through the what if, I'm thinking about real physics. I don't know. But everyone meets Klaus. Obviously, this conversation is different and reflects there being more characters there. Rex's trial is probably longer, including the 4 Torna members in it, because they're actual members of the party now. Klaus's dialogue is different, namely him being very confused about how Finch made it up here in the first place, and he really, really wants them to stop her. Like, it's a bit different than him just being like, yeah, go ahead, stop Malos, I'll let you do it, I'll explain to Numa who she really is. He really, really wants them to stop her because she's trying to just destroy the world like Malos did. But she's Finch. She is bound to forget something and screw things up. Which means there's a very big chance she'll use Ion and the Conduit's power to do something even worse than nuke the planet's surface. So Klaus really, really wants them to stop her, and just sends them on their way really quickly. And as such, the final battle is Finch piloting Ion. But instead of there just being a random cutscene of the combatants exchanging banner like in the actual game halfway through the fight, instead, Ophion comes in again through a wall or window or something, and the final fight is now basically 2 parties against a 2 artifice boss. The heroes are able to become triumphant, but there's no cool finishing move at the end. This is Finch we're talking about. She's just gonna eventually forget to block an attack, and whoops, there we go, someone's weapon just stabbed all the way through Ion, and one-shotted her, one-shotting the mech. Make it Tora who does it, because that's probably the most anticlimactic way you could do it. I don't know. So, Ion is just completely gone. Logos' influence is now completely faded, because she doesn't have anyone to transfer her power to, like Malos somehow could. So Numa gets Ophion back in her control. Since Ion's completely out of commission, she just uses Ophion instead of Ion to keep the tree from being destroyed. And normally she boops grabs his core crystal to allow him to turn back into a Titan, but this time she'll boop Jin's and whisper something in his ear. She still needs to sacrifice herself as she did before, and the whole escape pod sequence happens. Rex does his thing on the bridge. Jin and Zeke are both trying to talk him down from it. Jin also having experience losing people he loves, obviously, so that works. They're both kind of, I guess Jin's the big, or Zeke's the big brother, Jin's the father. That definitely makes more sense than the other way around. So they get in the escape pods, those start disintegrating again, which is, you know, a bad thing because Greps can't fly. But between Jin being able to fly, sort of, and Rock being able to control the wind, yeah, I'm making Rock do more stuff in this story than he did in the actual game, they're able to make it to the Marsanes, which is also just kind of floating around randomly because the tree's collapsing. They all get on safely, and Jin goes over, sees Ice Laura, she's okay, he hugs the ice sculpture, it starts to melt, and eventually he's just actually embracing Laura's actual body. Then, the thing Numa did to his core crystal happens. He reverts to normal, and Laura's heart comes back. So, someone's heart does get brought back, and it's not just, or two people's hearts. It's not just Rex. Laura's heart comes back too. She actually revives. Jin becomes a normal Blade. So, everyone is super happy, obviously. Except for Rex, he's devastated. And the rest of the ending passes as normal, except instead of being on Gramps' back, they're on the Marsanes, and there's twice as many people present. So, our only last change is the final scene of the game. Rex pulls out the core crystal and reawakens Pyra and Mithra. But before Poppy can run over to hug them, there is a third Blade present. It is Finch. And it's left completely ambiguous whether or not this is the original pure burb child that started out the adventure, or if this is still the evil girl under Malos' sway. And then the game ends. And so does this video, because, yeah, it's April Fool's. I don't know how I was able to keep a straight face through that entire thing, but hey, what are you gonna do? There we go. I somehow managed to pull it off. I don't know. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want more videos that are absolutely nothing like this, because I don't do humor content as much, which I really should do more. But this was really funny. I came up with this idea probably last year, or like when I decided to become a Xenoblade channel and started liking Finch a lot, was a bit after the beginning of April. So it's like, you know, I want to do what ifs on this channel. I'm gonna, like, actually start doing that now. I basically started scripting the video the same day I started recording this audio, but I had the idea in mind for a long time, and this went through many iterations, so I'm glad I was finally able to put this out there. As always, thank you for watching, but also, wow, look at that, you've been seeing some names on screen, and that's because I have a Patreon now. Wow. I announced it at a really, really bad time, so you might not actually know about that. But, believe it or not, I got some patrons, and some people have already pledged, even though it's only been out for like a day, I guess? So, thank you to everyone you see on screen, and especially Dead Pat and Lily Starflame, who are the people who paid enough to actually get their name shouted out here in the credits. So, thanks to all of you. This Patreon is explicitly to fund me being able to afford Xenogears and Xenosaga and all the stuff I need to record that stuff. So, if you want to help out that and get some small cool rewards, there should be a link somewhere on screen for the end slate. So, there you go. That's all I got for today, and until next time, this is Luxin, signing off.